In this final lesson, we're going to learn about layered materials inside of the Advanced Material Editor. Alright, so let's open up our Material Editor, and we're going to discuss layered materials. Now this may seem like we're digressing a little bit because we've talked about ecosystem materials, we've talked about hypertextures, and we've got into mixed materials and simple materials, and this is kind of going to seem like we're going back to just working with simple materials again. But mixed materials are very helpful, and you have a lot of control over them. And I want to show you how we work with that. Now, most of the work is going to be taking place right here in the hierarchy, because View has to evaluate your layered materials in a specific order, and you need to learn how to control them properly in order for it to work correctly. So to start out by creating a layered material, you need to come right up here into your hierarchy section and create a new layer. Now when it comes up, it's going to ask you to select a material. Now you could choose one of these materials here, or you can just choose a default, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to choose this snow material for right now and hit OK. Now you'll notice that it's created this new snow material, and that it's also kept our previous default material. Now it's combined those into a layered material, which is made up of these two sub-materials. Right? Now, on our snow material here, this is the top material in this, or the top sub-material in this entire material here. So this is where most of our control is going to be happening. Now on the bottom layer, you won't have as much control. Now you can still create any material that you like except for volumetric materials, but you can still create this material however you like. But the snow material here, which is above our bottom here, has this alpha boost, and this is what's going to give us a lot of our control over how the layers react to one another. Now like I said, View is going to evaluate from the top to bottom. Now let's get into actually working with creating a layered material. So right now you can see that if we select this material at the top, it looks like just that snow material. And that's because it has 0 alpha information. It's not allowing us to see what's below it. So let's go ahead and set that up. Let's go to our snow material, and in our alpha production, let's use a function. So double click on it, and let's just use this grainy fractal. Now you can see here that our snow has been cut out, and we have this alpha that's allowing us to see the bottom submaterial. So now let's go to our submaterial, and let's create a material for this. Now if you come down here, you're going to be loading a new function, and we don't want to do that. What we want to do is load a new material. So what I can do is right click on this and load material. Now you can choose any material that you want from any one of these collections. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm actually going to use this gray mountain rock here. And you can use anything that you like, but we'll just use that. And now if we take a look at our snow, you can see that we have that snow as well as that gray mountain rock below it. So we can begin to use this alpha boost to mix this together, or to adjust the alpha layer. All right. So if I adjust my alpha boost and I take that up higher, more of the snow material is going to be showing up. Now if I take it lower, we're going to get less and less of that. So let's take it up to, let's go to about -20% on this, and let's just hit OK and see what this looks like on our mountain. Now by looking at this, it looks like our snow is covering up most of our mountain here. Now this would be great if that was what we were going for. Now what I want to go for in this specific lesson is try to show you how we can control these materials and mix them together in such a way that we can get snow to be at a specific altitude and a specific slope orientation. All right, so let's go back into our material, and let's add a bump map to our snow. We might as well do that as well. So let's double click on our function, let's add that grainy fractal, and you'll see that we now have a bump map on our snow. We could even add highlights to this, so if you want to bump up the intensity of those highlights. Now remember, snow is not going to be really shiny like a glass surface or a mirrored surface. It's going to be dull, but it's still going to have a little bit of a highlight to it. So about 20% should be okay. Now we're not going to add any transparency or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and just leave the reflections and translucency alone. We have effects, and you can adjust any of these lighting effects that you want, but I think snow should be fine just the way it is. Now let's go to our environment. This is where we're going to get a lot of control out of how this is going to apply to our environment. So in our altitude constraint, we can adjust this. So I want my snow to appear at higher altitudes. So I'm going to bring my bottom altitude up a little bit higher. Let's go to 0. Let's just type that in. Now you can see how that's working there. Now one thing that I want you to notice is that whenever we adjust this altitude range, you have this very hard line between the snow and the rock. So we want to make sure that we are using our fuzziness to make sure that that is blended nice and neat. So let's go to our fuzziness bottom and let's adjust that. Okay, so we'll go to about 20%, and you'll see now that's blended itself really nicely here. Alright, now we have our slope constraint that we can adjust. So if we don't want this to be at a very steep surface or steep side, we'll adjust that down so that it will only appear on areas that have a slope between 0 and 45 degrees. Now again, you can adjust that fuzziness there. So right now we want to adjust the fuzziness steep so that way it appears on those slopes. Now this might be a little bit too much, but we'll take a look at how it looks in our scene. We might bump this up to, let's say, 70, so that way we can see just a little bit more of that. Now we're going to leave our orientation alone. I think it should be okay. Let's hit OK on this and do a quick preview of how this looks. And you can see the snow is now here up on the top, and it's covering up quite a bit. Now you're going to see some of these wider areas here. This is the Gray Mountain. That's not necessarily that snow. Now one way that we can tell where our snow is we can come into our mixed material, and we can use this highlighter to highlight that snow, and you'll see that it turns pink here. Now when we hit OK and we do another preview of that, it'll actually highlight that snow in pink on our scene. So you can see that we were getting a mixture of that gray mountain rock with our snow on top of here. And I would like to kind of adjust that line. That's a very hard line there. So we could also drive that with a function as well. So if we go to our alpha, we can adjust where that's being placed on there. Okay, so if you want to drive that with your filter, you could do so as well. Now I'm going to come in here to my environment, and I'm going to adjust the fuzziness of that bottom a little bit more, so that way it's nice and smooth and it fades. Let's do our slope altitude. Let's go to about 80, and we can adjust that orientation if we like. So we'll do a preferred orientation of about 45 degrees or so. We can adjust the fuzziness just to make sure that it blends really well, and hit OK. Do a quick render, just check our snow areas. Now we're getting a little bit more to spread down to the bottom, giving us a little bit more variation, and that's really what I would like to see here. Okay, is a good variation. Alright, now let's go back into our material. Let's turn that highlighter off just by clicking on that one more time. Now if you're working with a layered material and you would like to change the order, you can always use these arrows here. So down is going to drop that snow down here, and then you can go to your Gray Mountain, and this is changed here. Now this is not the correct order because now we have an alpha on the bottom, and that's really not going to work that well for us. So if we want to bring that back up, we just click up with snow highlighted. Alright, now you can add as many materials and as many layers as you would like to this. You just need to remember that View evaluates this from top to bottom, and it's taking the alphas into account. So if you want this Gray Mountain rocks to be there as the bottommost layer, you need to make sure that it stays at the bottom. So we can come in and add a new layer, and we could say, let's add some grass in here. Okay, now you'll see here grass is up above our gray mountain rock, and that's the place where we wanted it, but now we need to adjust its alpha. So you need to go to the alpha production, add in a function for this to be driven, and we want to adjust that a little bit more. Let's go to our snow just to kind of see how that looks there, and you can go to the topmost material just to observe how this list looks. Okay, it looks exactly the same as this. And then we can hit OK, do a quick render of this, and now we've added another layer to this. Okay, and just remember that it works from the top down. Now, if we want to add an ecosystem to our layered materials, we can do that, but that does work just a little bit differently. So let's go up to our material editor. Let's bring that back up. And let's add in an ecosystem material here. So let's go to that grass. And I want to get rid of this actually. So I'm going to just select it and then hit delete. Okay. So now we're back to our snow gray material. And let's add in an ecosystem material. So I'm going to add layer. And we can go to ecosystem layers if we want to. But I'm just going to select just a basic material, and I'll just choose that grass again. It's easily replaceable. So I'm going to change this to ecosystem, and this grass, I'm going to delete that out there. So now I have my grass eco here, and on this I can come in here and start to populate an ecosystem. So I'm going to switch this to dynamic while I'm right there. Let's add in just a simple tree, and let's do something like a pine tree of some sort. So that looks pretty good. We'll go with that. And we'll wait for that to populate in our ecosystem list here. Okay, so that's been populated into our list here. And if you want to preview that, you can do so. But I'm going to go ahead and just wait on that. Now, at this point, I've created a layered material containing this grass ecosystem. What we need to understand about ecosystem and how Vue evaluates them in our layered materials is it populates grass ecosystems from the bottom up. So if we have multiple ecosystems, it's going to take the bottommost and populate it first, and then it's going to move to the next ecosystem, populate it next, and then to the next ecosystem and populate it. Now, it's still going to do regular materials from the top down. Now, ecosystems go from the bottom up, just like you would think in regular nature. It's going to populate things like rocks and grass and things like that, and then it'll move on up to trees and that sort of thing. Now, that all depends on how you have your ecosystem materials layered in here. Now, by my logic, I would do grass at the bottom, move up to rocks, and then move up to trees and that sort of thing. Okay, so now we have this grass ecosystem in here, and what I want to do last here is to show you how to create a snapshot of a material. What this is going to do is just kind of do a temporary save of this material. So I want to create a snapshot, and it's going to create a snapshot or a temporary save of this current material. Now I want to take this ecosystem, I'm going to delete it out, and I'm going to create another snapshot. So now I have two different versions here that I can revert back to. So let's say that I've had this applied, and I render this out, and I say, okay, I don't really like it, I want that ecosystem back. I can just click on this, and it's going to revert or restore this version. So let's right click on it, restore version, and you'll see now that this is inside of our active material slot. So let's hit OK, and before we do that, let's preview our ecosystem. So we need to go to that layer, preview, and then hit OK, and then we'll do a quick render. And there we go. So now we have our ecosystem populated, and we've all done this with a layered type of material. Now, like I said, layered materials may seem like we digress a little bit from those more advanced types of materials, but layered materials can be very, very powerful as long as you know how to use them properly. All right, so we've covered every type of material that you can use inside of Vue, and you should have enough information now to begin experimenting by creating your own materials. And again, always show what you come up with on the forums. We love to see that stuff, and we love to work with you guys and helping you answer questions and things like that. So post your stuff on the forum. We'll see you then. And I had a lot of fun going throughout this course. I hope you had fun too, and I'll see you guys next time.